A tale about Bami, the wrongly accused. Bami was a strong, fine-looking man of 40 who earned his living as a taxi driver. Every night, he navigated the windy road around the village of Ao, ferry market women to a neighboring small village to sell their farm products. Bami barely say a word, but the women did not mind. They liked him anyway. His presence alone was comforting. His broad shoulder and sharp figure still striking even after many years of hardship. Yet Bami no longer smiled like he used to. 10 years has passed since the accident that changed his life forever, stripping everything, not just his voice, but the future he once dreamt of. As he drove, his thoughts drifted back to that day, the moment his car slipped off the road, the world spinning violently before his eyes. Everything went dark. 6 months in the hospital bed, 6 months wondering if he could ever be whole again. And then coming home to an empty house, his wife gone without so much as a note, leaving their 1-year-old daughter, Mide, behind. Now Mide was 10, a bright, lovely girl. She was his world, even though she saw him more as of a shadow than a father. They spoke little, mostly because it was hard for him to say a word. Once strong and full of laughter was now broken. His words slender and soft, barely able to go through a sentence without struggling. But Mide loved him. Mide loved him anyway, even if he could not always say the word back. "Daddy," Mide said one evening, her small voice carrying into the room as she sat beside him. "Kemi is coming over tomorrow after school. Is that okay?" Bami nodded, his lip half a smile. Kemi was Mide's best friend, always laughing and full of life. Her energy brightened their quiet home. Even if Bami felt uneasy whenever she was around, it wasn't Kemi herself that troubled him. It was Kemi's father, Mr. Banji. Mr. Banji was the chief of staff in the police, and he never liked Bami. Years ago, when Banji had tried to buy the land Bami inherited from his father, Bami had refused. It was all he had left of his family, and selling wasn't an option. Bami took the refusal personally, and from there on, he treated Bami with contempt. Even now, he made it clear he did not approve his daughter spending time with Mide. Be careful," he whispered, his voice strained. Mide smiled, not noticing the tremor in his voice. "Don't worry, Daddy. Kemi is always careful," she said that evening. The next day, Kemi arrived as planned. The two girls played together, their laughter filling the house, a sound that warmed Banji's heart. He watched them from a distance, a faint smile as his lips, but then of a sudden, the laughter stopped. Bami looked up, his heart beating fast in his chest, as he saw Kemi collapsing on the floor, her body limp and unmoved. Mide, he tried to shout, his voice broken. Panic flooded through him. He rushed over, kneeling beside them, shaking her gently. Kemi, Kemi, please, get up. What is the problem?" Mide high, wide with tenor. "Daddy, what is happening?" Bami did not have time to explain as he blurted out of the house. rushing into the street. His voice housed as he called for help, but it took too long for anyone to come because they barely understand what he was saying. But they know it was trouble with the look on his face. By the time they got Kemi to the hospital, she was already gone. It was too late. The next day were blurred. Mide was inconsolable. Her tears never ended. Bami sat beside her, holding her close, but inside he felt whole. He had tried everything he could, but he did not have enough time to save Kemi. Then came the knock at the door. It was Banji, his face twisted in grief and anger. "You killed my daughter!" he screamed, his eyes wide. "You killed her!" Bami shook his head. His throat tightened, the words failing him. He tried to explain, to tell Banji what had happened, but his voice wouldn't work. The words wouldn't come out. "You could not even call for help properly, could you?" Banji said. "With your broken voice and your broken life, you murdered my daughter." Mide cried beside him, clutching his arm. "It wasn't my daddy's fault. It wasn't." But Banji wasn't listening. He turned his rage into action, using his position as a police chief to arrest Bami, without trial, without explanation. Bami was thrown into the cell, the iron bars, cold and unforgiving. Years has passed in the prison. One day, a stranger arrived in Hao. It was Pastor Ola, a traveling preacher known for his fiery sermon and compassionate heart. Hearing of Bami plague, he visited the prison and prayed with him. "God sees everything," Ola said, holding his hands. "The truth will come to light one day." Inspired by Pastor Ola's preaching, Bami continued to pray, asking God for forgiveness and God's intervention as he prayed every day and night in the prison for God to show up in his case. Years pass, months pass, days pass in prison. Bami's world shaking to a small silent corner where he was cut off from Mide and his mother. He thought of them often, wondering how they would survive without him. Banji's influence kept everyone who tried to help bay him out. Those who might stood by Bami were silent with bribe or threat. Bami's only solace was the memory of Mide's face, her laughter and her small hands holding his. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, the wind of change blew through the land. A new government came into power, and with it, Banji was transferred to another state. For the first time in years, Bami's case was revisited. In the courtroom, Bami sat quietly listening as the truth unveiled. The doctor testified that Kemi had a pre-existing heart condition that caused her death. It was no one's fault, least of all Bami. The medical report was clear. The judge's voice echoed in the hall. Bami is not guilty. Tears running down Bami's eyes as he heard the word he was free. Free after all these years of silence and suffering. The court ordered Banji to pay him amount of money for wrongfully imprisoning him, and Banji was sentenced to prison for abuse of power. When Bami returned home, Mide ran into his hands, tears running down both faces. "Daddy," she cried, burying her face into his chest. I knew you would come back. I knew it. Bami hand wrapped around her, holding her close, his heart heavy with the weight of everything he had endured. With love, he held his daughter close to himself. I am here, he whispered. His voice still broken, but his words clear now. I am here. And for the first time in long time, Bami smiled, a real genuine smile, knowing that despite everything he had survived, he and Mide will rebuild their life together. The moral of the story is that the truth will definitely triumph over injustice and hardship. Despite facing immense suffering, betrayal and abuse of power, Bami quiet strength and perseverance led to the vindication and freedom. The story also highlights the destructive nature of holding onto grudges and the use of power for personal revenge. As seen in Banji's case, the downfall. In the end, love, especially between family and the pursuit of truth, can heal even the deepest wound and bring justice to those wronged. Please tell me what you think about the story. I will be waiting for you at the comment section. See you on my next one. Like, share and comment. Thank you.